Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 6, 2022, the Will He Reinstate Trump edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal as Elon Musk announced he has purchased 9.2% of stock in Twitter and has joined the Twitter board of directors. So, the question burning is he going to use his board position not only to hammer the SEC, but will he bring Trump back on board Twitter? So it's going to be very interesting, particularly if he tries to do that. The blowback against Twitter will be pretty high and heavy, but Twitter took his money and brought him onto the board. So as a free speech absolutist, perhaps it's part of his overall strategy to fight the SEC in his lawsuit to try to get out of his prior cease and desist order, which he agreed to. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, the PCAOB has, for the first time, fined an individual over failure to supervise senior auditors. The PCAOB fined Scott Marcello, who was KPMG's vice chair of audit, over a leak of confidential information. He had been terminated in 2017, and KPMG said at the time Marcello and 4 others mishandled a tip that gave the firm improper advanced word about which of its audits the PCAOB planned to scrutinize. The Steal the Exam scandal led to KPMG paying a $50 million settlement with the SEC in 2019 and a 1-year prison sentence for Marcello's deputy, who went to trial and lost, and he has appealed his conviction. But Marcello was now fined $100,000, once again, the largest penalty ever assessed by the PCAOB against individuals. So perhaps the PCAOB will actually start regulating the folks it's legislatively mandated to. From the Financial Times, Brussels has ratcheted up its pressure on Budapest over the alleged corruption in President Orban's regime or administration in Hungary. It's the first time Brussels is applying new powers that would allow it, as a final stage, to withhold EU funding from a company that breaches the rule of law. Hungary in the past years has had their EU funding jeopardized because of continued corruption revelations. And our final story is about the 1MDB trial. We've had closing arguments. Prosecutors squarely blamed Roger Ng, while Roger Ng blamed Tim Leisner. Now in the hands of the jury. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.